What is up, guys? My name is Ross, and like you, I am oh so enthused about Photoshop and photography, and today, do I have a tasty tutorial for you guys. We are going to take a photo in Photoshop and color grade its face off using Adobe Camera Raw filter. So let's hop into Photoshop. Here I have a lovely photo, and before I get into editing it today, I want to say I found this raw photo on the interwebs. Yes, there is a website for that. It's called saturate.com because let's face it, not all of us are Peter McKinnon, and we don't have people sending us hundreds upon hundreds of images to edit on their YouTube channel. So go to Saturate, not sponsored. I just found it today, but it's awesome because if you don't have the time to go out and shoot in lovely places like this, or you just want to edit other people's raw photos, and I do recommend editing in raw because you have all the information. You have all the highlight detail, all the shadow detail, and you can push and pull those colors and tones to your heart's content. So saturate.com, that's where I got this image. Let's get into the edit. We're going to hit Command J. Make sure I'm in Photoshop. Hit Command J to duplicate the layer. Now, after we duplicate it, we want to right click on it and convert it to a smart object. We want it to be a smart object because if we're not satisfied with what we do in Adobe Camera Raw, we can then click into it, double click into those edits and edit them whenever we want. It's magical. So with the smart object created, go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter, and a new dialog box is going to pop up. And if you've never seen this before, what have you been doing with your life? This is a magical tool in Photoshop. And to be honest, any edit I do in Photoshop, I throw through Adobe Camera Raw either at the beginning or at the end of said edit. So when you get in here, it might look daunting. There's toolbars, there's tools up here and toolbars and tabs over here on the right. We're only going to deal with the tabs and modules or whatever you want to call them on the right today. But maybe in a future tutorial, we'll go over the tools at the top. So if you've ever used Adobe Lightroom or Lightroom CC, whatever the heck they're calling it these days, most of these tools and toolbars and tabs and modules to the right probably look a little familiar to you. So we're going to start here in this basic tab. That's the one that should always be open when you open a photo in Camera Raw. And I'm just going to hit auto because I am lazy. And, you know, most of the time, auto will get you 90% of the way there in terms of the tones, because we're dealing with colors today and color grading, but it starts with the tones. You really need the tones to be locked in, especially if your exposure's off. Now, auto for me, let's see a before and after. Look how it brightened everything up. This is exactly what I would do with this image. I might not go so drastic on the highlights, and I might bump down the shadows a little bit just to retain some of that contrast. But then all in all, maybe bring up dehaze just to bring on some of that detail back in the sky. But like I said, 90% of the time, clicking that auto button is going to get you there instantly. So with that out of the way, I'm going to go into this one all the way to the right, almost all the way to the right. It's called calibration. Now this tab is where I always push my teal and orange color contrast edits. And I'll just show you. Basically, if I push blue primary to the left towards this teal color, it's going to make it more orange. And if I go into the red and push it more towards an orange, it kind of brings out the blues. It's not doing it too much in this particular image, but trust me, just by doing this kind of edit, pushing and pulling the red primary and blue primary, you're going to get that teal and orange look that everyone is using these days, but rightly so. It's a color contrast that's very flattering, especially to skin tones. And to be honest, because they're complementary colors, they just go good together. So I'm going to push and pull these around a little bit, maybe play with the saturation because sometimes these get super saturated, so you do want to watch that. If I kept this saturation where it was or bump it up, it's just, it's no bueno for my liking. It's too saturated. So this is looking pretty good. I might even, sometimes playing with the tint and the shadows helps. It doesn't look like it's doing too much for me right now. I'm going to get this back to my full view so I can see what I'm doing. And if you're in Camera Raw, what I'm doing there is just hitting the Q button, and it'll show you different splits of a before and after. But to keep that out of the way, I'm just going to keep it on our edit for now. So from there, I usually go into the HSL sliders or adjustments, and this is hue, saturation, and luminance. And I'm going to work left to right. So we're going to start in hue. I'm going to drop my reds if there are any reds. There are some reds down here if you're looking. I'm not going to drop it that drastically. I'm going to drop the oranges. Actually, I'm going to push them a little yellow. The yellows, usually I push these to orange, but I'm got so much orange in this photo already. I'm going to push it towards green. I'm going to push the greens towards an aqua, the aquas towards blue. But then the blues, if you look back here, if we zoom in, come on, zoom in. Whoa, there. Okay. You can see it's doing a lot in that area. And I don't want it so drastic, but I'm going to drop those just a wee bit. And there doesn't seem to be too many purples or magentas. So from there, we're going to go into saturation. And most of the time, I'm probably dropping these because my pet peeve is oversaturated images. And because we're in Camera Raw, we'll start kind of undersaturated. And then when we get it back into the regular Photoshop app or program, whatever the hell it's called, we can always bump up saturation from there. So I'm gonna always, what's the phrase? I'm gonna always err on the side of being a little bit undersaturated, just because that's my preference. Once again, this is just how I do it. You can do it however the hell you want, really. So let's see here. I'm going to drop all these greens. I typically drop a lot. There's hardly any greens in here. Yellows will drop drastically. But blues, I'm going to pump those up. And the reason why I'm pumping those up is because even though it doesn't look like there's any in the sky, by pumping these up, it really brings out some more blue in that sky. There doesn't seem, once again, there's no purple or magenta, so I don't have to play with that. Okay, and then we go into luminance. Now, luminance, you got to be careful, because if you push and pull these too drastically, you're going to get things real muddy or just really blown out. Actually, I don't mind pushing those oranges a little brighter. Same with the yellows. Once again, greens, not really too much in there. Aquas, I'm going to have to see the aquas and blues. Once again, that's doing something in the sky. I don't know if it's going to come across in the video. Maybe if I drop if I drop the blues, you might be able to see it better. It's kind of darkening the sky, which would be expected, because in the previous one we were talking about the blues, bumping those up in the sky. So by default, bringing the blues down in luminance is going to darken the sky. So that's looking pretty good. I'm actually happy where this is at right now. I'm going to do a quick before and after. Look at that. That's looking good. I'm not done yet. So from here, I'm going to go into this thing called split tone. And split tone is actually awesome. I use this a lot in my black and white photos, but it does an amazing job with color photos too. Basically, you can push colors into the highlights and or the shadows. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go opposite of what I was doing. I'm going to push some blue in the highlights and maybe some reds into the shadows, which is counterintuitive to how I usually work. I usually push orange or reds into the highlights and blues into the shadows, because warm colors are usually for the highlights and cool colors are typically for the shadows. But hey, I'm breaking the rules today just for you guys. Wow, my chair is squeaky. You guys hearing that? Okay. All right, let's do not that much. Maybe right there, and then that's some blue, a little bit of red, reddish orange. Right about there. That's looking good. Now, once again, I'm almost done. The last thing I'm going to go into is the tone curve here. Now, most of the time it'll be set on parametric, which you can definitely play here. Actually, I'm going to maybe play a little bit there. I hadn't planned on doing this, but it kind of gives you these preset kind of, parameters essentially. But I typically work in point. And the reason why I like to work in point is because I can set my points. So I typically will drop my shadows a little bit. My shadows, but then I'll bring up the blacks. And that's going to give us that classic, or what the kids are doing these days, is that crushed black look. That's looking pretty good. Now the cool thing is when you're in, this is another reason why I use the point tone curve. When you're in parametric, I have not found a way to edit the individual channels, but when you're in point, you can change it from RGB and you can go into the red, green, or blue channel, which I like to do because I like to push some blue into the shadows by raising the blue, the left end of the blue, or the shadow end of the blue, and dropping the blues in the highlights, or thus pushing yellows into the highlights, because the opposite of blue is yellow. And this is looking oh so very nice. I like this a lot, especially after that tone curve. Here's a before and after. I'm going to hit OK to accept these. And look at this. This is before and this is after. Just that quick within Adobe Camera Raw, you can get a color graded edit just like this. But like I said before, the reason why we did a smart filter is because I can now double click on Camera Raw and I can edit this. Let's say I'm too blue and I want to push some more warmth in. Well, not that much warmth. Jesus, Ross. Oh, man. But maybe I want to put a little warmth into there. Look at that, which I don't. I'm going to undo that. But there you go. That's how you do it in Adobe Camera Raw. This is what I typically always do with all my edits. And that's all I got for you today. All we did is we duplicated the background. Oh my God, my chair. Can you hear that? We duplicated the background. We converted it into a smart object so that we could do non-destructive edits and adjust those edits on the fly if we need to. And then we just worked our magic in Adobe Camera Raw. My name is Ross. I hope you enjoyed something. Let me know in the comments below how you edit your photos or how you color grade them. Give me a like and a subscribe. And turn on the bell. I guess that's a new thing. I haven't been on YouTube in like 10 years, at least producing on YouTube. So this bell thing is apparently a big deal. That's all I got for you guys today. I'll catch you next time.